Close your eyes for the best experience, because what you're about to hear isn't just news. It's the sound of a battlefield shifting beneath the world's feet. Listen carefully. A voice whispers through static. Target locked. FPV feed stable. All units stand by. Strike in 5, 4. A Ukrainian drone operator swallows hard. His fingertips tremble on the controller. A low hum fills the bunker, the sound of the drone slicing through the night air. 3, 2, hold! Hold! A commander shouts behind him. Wait for the thermal flare! Don't fire blind! The operator grits his teeth. Got it! Got it! Target confirmed! A massive explosion detonates across the river. The bunker shakes. Dust falls from the ceiling. Someone laughs. Someone cries. Someone prays. The commander exhales. That's one Russian convoy wiped clean. Keep eyes on the second wave. The narrator's voice enters slowly, because tonight, while Moscow claims Ukraine will never win the war, Ukraine is answering with fire, timing, and terrifying precision. But behind every blast, behind every inch of frontline mud, lies a story Russia doesn't want the world to hear. And this story begins with one sentence from the Kremlin that shook the entire conflict. Ukraine cannot win. It is delusional to believe otherwise. Those were the words of Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. But the Frontline responded differently. Let's begin. Peskov's voice crackled across Russian state TV like a sermon. Europe is delusional. Ukraine cannot win this war. The Frontline proves it. His tone was calm. Too calm. Almost triumphant. Inside Moscow's polished news studios, the message was controlled, rehearsed, airtight. But outside those studios, along the scarred field stretching from Zaporizhia to Donetsk, a completely different reality was unfolding. One filled with screams, mud, smoke, and fire. The Kremlin's declaration wasn't a statement. It was psychological warfare, and the front line reacted instantly. Moments after Peskov's announcement, Russian channels began pushing images of new villages captured. Sladki, Nov, Nyativka. Tiny names on a massive, blood-soaked map. But calling these victories is like claiming survival during a hurricane is the same as conquering it. Because to take these villages, Russia paid terribly. And deep inside a Ukrainian drone bunker, operators were preparing a reply, one that would shake the confidence of Russia's front line. But before we get to that, you need to understand the battlefield atmosphere, because nothing here is simple anymore. Not strategy, not claims, not reality. It's been almost 4 years since Russia's full-scale invasion. 4 years of trench mud that swallows boots and bodies. 4 years of artillery duels that light up the night like thunderstorms. 4 years of drones buzzing constantly overhead, the new monsters of modern war. Both sides are entrenched so deeply it looks like the Western Front of 1916, but with 21st century eyes in the sky. Every meter of land costs blood. Every advance is temporary. Every mistake is fatal. Russia claims it has the initiative, that it cannot be stopped. But if you watch the battlefield, not the TV, a more complex truth emerges. Russia's gains are real, but they are slow, costly, and fragile. Because each time Russia pushes forward, Ukraine strikes back, harder. And tonight, that push and counter-push is reaching a new breaking point. Both armies know winter is coming. Wet fields, frozen trenches, low visibility, mud that traps tanks like quicksand. This is when mistakes become catastrophic. And both sides know it. Which brings us back to Peskov's statement. Why now? Why that sentence? Why that confidence? Because something is shifting, and Moscow wants the world to believe one version of the story, but the battlefield tells another. Here's the part the Kremlin didn't broadcast. Russia's claim that Ukraine cannot win was not confidence, it was projection. Behind closed doors, Moscow has been terrified by 3 things happening simultaneously. Ukraine's drone production has skyrocketed. Western weapons negotiations continue quietly behind the scenes. Russia's manpower is stretched thin across a 1,000-plus kilometer front. Russia needed a psychological blow. So they spoke first, loud, bold, absolute. Ukraine can't win, but the front line refused to obey the script, because within 24 hours, A series of Ukrainian drone and artillery strikes destroyed Russian convoys near Zaporizhzhia, the same area Russia boasted about gaining. And one Ukrainian commander said it clearly: if Russia claims victory, it means they're preparing for a bigger failure. Now pay attention, because the most important part of the story is what happened next. Let's go back to that dark bunker, back to the drone operators breathing, back to the hum of engines slicing through the night sky. Because while Moscow was celebrating small gains, Ukraine was setting a trap. Inside the bunker, a young operator adjusts his headset. Distance confirmed. Wind speed stable, launching second drone now. A spotter whispers, Russian infantry moving near the tree line. They're trying to push forward. The commander nods. Let them. We strike as soon as they cluster. Another operator adds, thermal confirms at least 20 bodies in the corridors. Perfect grouping. They think the area is safe. The commander smirks. They always do after a TV announcement. He leans forward. All right, boys, tonight we answer Moscow's confidence. Let's light up their victory parade, the drone dives. Russian soldiers below look up. Too late. The explosion blinds the night. Smoke fills the sky. A soldier screams. Another tries to crawl away, dragging a wounded comrade. The narrator returns. Because Ukraine wasn't just resisting. It was dismantling Russia's momentum, piece by piece. And the fight is far from over. Why is Russia seizing villages again? Simple. Moscow wants leverage. More land equals better negotiation position. More pressure on Kyiv, more victories to show domestic audiences. But here's the part they desperately want to hide. The villages they're capturing are small, destroyed, and militarily insignificant. Sladki, population almost zero. Nov, mostly rubble. Nativka, abandoned and exposed to artillery. Capturing them looks good on TV. Holding them is a nightmare. Every time Russia advances, they stretch their supply lines. They expose fresh troops to Ukrainian FPV drones. They lose more men than Ukraine. Even Russian mill bloggers, usually loud supporters, are calling these advances Pyrrhic gains, victories that cost more than they're worth. But the Kremlin keeps pushing the narrative. Ukraine cannot win, because narratives win wars long before armies do. Let's talk about the bigger picture, what Russia really wants. Peskov's message wasn't for Ukraine. It was for European governments, American voters, Russian citizens, international skeptics, war-fatigued audiences, and even Ukrainian morale. By declaring Ukraine's defeat, Russia aims to break Western patience, force Kyiv into desperation, pressure Washington's scare. Smaller NATO countries make the conflict feel inevitable. But here's the twist. Each time Russia claims the war is almost won, Ukraine responds with battlefield chaos. And something critical is happening right now. Ukraine's drone warfare has hit a new evolution point. Long range, mid-range, short range, night vision, thermal, anti-armor, cluster strike, swarm capable. Russia may have manpower, but Ukraine has innovation, and the Kremlin knows it. This war will end only when, Peskov said, the war would end only when Ukraine abandons Donbas. Ukraine renounces Western support. Ukraine accepts Russian terms, which is essentially surrender. Kyiv has already said no, never, impossible. Because agreeing would guarantee a second invasion, later, stronger, deadlier. This is why the war drags on. Russia demands capitulation. Ukraine demands sovereignty. The world watches. Both sides dig deeper. The conflict is no longer about territory. It's about survival. And tonight's message from Moscow was a psychological hammer. But the battlefield hit back. Here's the final chapter, and a warning. Before we conclude, listen closely. Because the final part may be the most important, as Ukrainian drone operators rest their hands and recharge their batteries, as Russian infantry tries to regroup around newly captured villages, as both sides prepare for a brutal winter, a single truth cuts through the smoke. This war is nowhere near over. Russia wants to project inevitability. Ukraine wants to prove resilience. The world wants a conclusion, but history isn't ready yet. The Kremlin says Ukraine cannot win, but tonight, in the mud, in the trenches, in the drone bunkers, Ukraine is proving that the only definitive answer will come from the battlefield, not from microphones, not from press rooms, not from propaganda. Only from the cold, brutal, unforgiving ground where soldiers fight and fall, and that ground is still contested. This isn't the end. This is the next chapter. Close your eyes again for a moment. Hear the drone engines. Hear the artillery thunder. Hear the voice shouting, "Target locked!" Hear the war breathing in the dark, because this story continues